into this story here about Nancy Pelosi uses Barack Obama. You know, Nancy thinks she's slick, but I have some things that I'm going to show you that's going to prove Nancy long. During this interview that she had with Brian Tyler Cohen, so he's a liberal commentator, although on his channel it says he's the most independent progressive. He's not. He's a Biden supporter. You know, see how people have been able to kind of take this word progressive and use it to their liking. But he's a Biden supporter. He's interviewed Joe Biden, actually. But he interviewed Nancy Pelosi recently about the Democrat chances going into 2024, some of the wins that just happened locally, and the possibility of Joe Biden actually having, I would say, a substantial amount of support come election day. And that's where she tries to bring in Barack Obama. But let's chime in first from the very beginning. When they start to discuss the wins, the local wins that the Democratic Party had.
I'm joined today by Speaker Pelosi. Thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure to be with you.
So Democrats have overperformed in races across the country in this latest off-year election cycle, from Pennsylvania to Virginia to Kentucky. When you saw this happen,
Ohio,
when you even almost in Mississippi, when you were watching this happen, even as everyone had written Democrats off, what was going through your head?
Well, last year, as you know, it was going to be a red tide. We were going to have 40, we were going to lose 40 seats or 30 seats at a minimum. We lost five in New York. And we'll get those back with our new leadership with Hakeem Jeffries. But five. And you know why? Because the pundits who really are not out in the field or anything, just sitting in wherever they are, just out there saying, oh, they have the wrong message. Women's right to choose. Dobbs' decision, that's in the rearview mirror. They've got to be talking about something else. But
let's pause here when she calls out, she says the pundits who are not out in the field. The activists are in the field. Some of us are out in the field, actually talking to the voters, actually talking to the everyday people. And if we want to be real about it, when she's talking about pundits not being out in the field, I would say CNN and MSNBC, I don't see them out on the street talking to voters, asking them who they're going to support, why they don't feel comfortable supporting Joe Biden again, why they're unhappy with the Democratic Party. No, they bring on experts that are already, basically, they've already been given the green light by the Democratic Party. So these are Democrat operatives that they bring onto these segments to convince the American people that things are not that bad. But I don't see them out in the street talking to voters, talking to the everyday American people, asking them how they feel about the election going into 2024. But these were local wins. The woman's right to choose, obviously, like I said before, that has bipartisan support. A lot of people are still thinking, like Nancy Pelosi, thinking and assuming that all Republicans are against a woman's right to choose. That's not true. And Nancy Pelosi, I don't really think has the right to brag about the woman's right to choose issue, considering the fact that she endorsed Democrat candidates that were against a woman's right to choose, like Henry Cuellar. So it's really interesting that she wants to pretend like she's the one that's out in the field talking to the voters and the everyday people, and the rest of us are just sitting at home.
we knew. I kept saying to members and to grassroots activists, because that's where I am, we can win this. And we won just about every place because we made the distinction about freedom, women's right to choose this or that, about saving the planet, about gun violence prevention, about democracy, and showed the votes of the Republicans versus the platform of the Democrats. And we won all over. And when I see all.
But that wasn't, they won on that particular issue because the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. So that sent the rights back to the states. So then these become ballot measures like it was in Ohio. So the people went out and voted for the ballot measure. So direct democracy there. So it's not like, you know, the way that she's talking about this is not like the Democratic Party just did so well that the American people were like, oh, yes, let's support, a woman's right to choose. No, let's be real. You guys slept on this issue for decades. You could have codified Roe v. Wade into law. You chose not to. Barack Obama lied about it, said he would do it and didn't do it. backed off of it, tried to blame Joe Lieberman when he could have just abolished the filibuster and fulfilled both of these at the same time. But the reality is, it should have never gotten to that point in the first place. And it got to that point because when Democrats were in power, they decided not to use their leverage to codify something like Roe v. Wade into law. That is something I've noticed about the Democratic Party. They tend to be reactive instead of proactive. You know, it's like, make an example. It's like, you know that there's a hurricane coming. You've been warned about it for weeks. But it's like the Democratic Party, instead of trying to board up their house and prep for the hurricane and decide whether they're going to hunker down in their house that's boarded up or they're going to, evacuate and go somewhere else where the hurricane is not going to be as strong. It's like the hurricane is now on their block. And then they're like, oh no, the hurricane's here. What do we do? I feel like that's how the Democratic Party responds. Reactive, not proactive.
All these Dobbs' decision is in the rearview mirror now. I barely say hello to them because it was destructive to our country. And so we campaigned. I have a grassroots operation calling into all of these states, especially Virginia and Ohio, because they had a very strong grassroots operations that welcomed outside help. I spent the day in Virginia, and their vitality was so strong. But again, this is a very big issue. And it was compelling, as you saw in Ohio and in other states. And the victory in Virginia was very significant because they want to turn it into Florida. And the Democrats there just said no.
Well, to that.
Okay. So we're now going to move on to this issue about Barack Obama, because this is where she gets caught. So one of the issues that he's raising is the fact that Biden's poll numbers are not great. She tries to use the example of Barack Obama. Watch this.
Right now, we must win the election. It's 1 year out. And just to remind, 1 year out from the election, 2011 for the 212, President Obama was not in good shape in the polls. One poll, 5-11. He was not in good shape in the polls. But that's what campaigns are about. So what is it that is what drives you? What is your passion? Is it saving the planet? Is it protecting personal anatomy, freedom? Is it fairness in our education system and whatever? The election will make a difference, because if you care about justice, social justice, economic justice, environmental justice, personal freedom, the Democrats have to win this election. And then maybe in the unifying way, we can have some of these issues become bipartisan to save the planet and save our democracy and the rest. when people say, oh, well, Biden's numbers are behind, I say, you know what? That's the way it is. That's the way it was for Obama. That's the way it is for him. He must win. And that's the path we're on. And we will win the House. We will win the House.
That's the way it was for Barack Obama. Is that necessarily true? Let's look at some data. Because, you know, she should have known better than this. She should have known better. Nancy, you should have known, honey. You should have known. Let's go back to, where do I want to start? Make sure I got these in order. 2016, 2020. Let me see something. Hold on. I want to make sure I'm pulling up the right one. Okay. Eric, I think we missed the 2008 and 2012 and 2012 and I got it. Let me pull this up. All right, let's go to what happened in 2008. We're going to start from the beginning. 2008, Barack Obama. Because see, I'm going to show you what Nancy is leaving out when she says, well, Barack Obama wasn't polling well. Okay. Barack Obama had something that Joe Biden doesn't have, and I'm going to show you. If we go to 2008, let me go all the way down here. Just want to make sure I'm going to the right paragraph. Right here. This is the big piece that people really got to understand. In 2008, according to the exit polls, the candidate preference of non-white voters was distinctly different from that of white voters. Nearly all, 95% of Black voters cast their ballot for Democrat Barack Obama. 95%. Joe Biden did not have that, does not have that. No one else has been able to capture 95%. There's another piece. Nearly among Latino voters, 67% voted for Obama. 67%. So in 2008, Barack Obama had 95% of the Black vote and 67% of the Latino vote. That was the first time that he ran. Now, we're going in order. Let's go to 2012, because that would have been Barack Obama's re-election year. I want to show you where Nancy is leaving, again, another key fact out. Look at the polls. Look at the numbers. Exit polls of 2012 presidential election by race and ethnicity. In 2012, Barack Obama got 93% of the Black vote. 93. He got 71% of the Hispanic vote. So he had a slight decrease in 2012. He went from 95% of the Black vote to 93% of the Black vote. But Barack Obama increased his support with Hispanic voters for his re-election campaign. He went from 67 up to 71%. The point that I'm trying to make is this. Even though Obama lost a small portion of the Black vote in 2012 when he was running for re-election, Joe Biden has not been able to do that. Nobody else has done this. So I don't think it's fair for Nancy Pelosi to use Barack Obama as an example in reference to Joe Biden's situation. That is the problem. So he lost a little bit of African American support, but he gained the Latino American support and won re-election. Now I want to show you what happened after that, because we're just going to go in order here. We're going to talk about how Barack Obama was actually able to win in 2012, because this piece is important. Eric, this is not at the timestamp. Let me see what it is. Give me just a second. Okay, that should be. Let me move it forward. All right. Let me explain to you how Barack Obama won in 2012, because this is very important. And I think people need to understand, if you're going to try to make the comparison of Barack Obama's re-election and Joe Biden's re-election, I think it's important that you actually see this video. Watch this.
On a soul searching. And they're a party that's been built now for 25 years ago, not for the 21st century. And they're going to have to figure out how they can appeal to Latinos, women, blacks, and a whole group of other voters that they've now lost touch with.
Thank you so much.
The numbers tell the tale. Mitt Romney actually won white voters by the biggest margin of any candidate since Ronald Reagan in 1984, but they are a shrinking portion of the vote. The Obama coalition's growing by leaps and bounds. Latinos, for the first time, are now 10% of the electorate. Obama won them big time. More than twice as many unmarried women backed Obama over Romney, also a growing sector of the vote. And the president once again got huge support from young people.
Pause. That's another problem. Joe Biden has lost support from young voters.
So, how will Republicans react?
Hey, any of you guys in there want to come sit in my chair today? Anybody?
A shell-shocked Rush Limbaugh offered one option: contempt for Obama's supporters.
They think that the only way they're going to have a chance for anything is if somebody comes along and takes from somebody else and gives it to them. Santa Claus. And it's hard to beat Santa Claus.
That old slander that Americans who support Obama are all somehow moochers and takers, it's become bedrock belief for many Republicans. Mitt Romney echoed it in that infamous video.
There are 47% who are with him, who are dependent upon government, who believe that they are victims, who believe that government has a responsibility to care for them, who believe that they're entitled to health care, to food, to housing, to you name it.
Did you hear what Mitt Romney said? They believe they're entitled to health care and food. Entitled to food.
But already today, you heard Republican voices acknowledging that the party needs to adapt.
I think Republicans have done a pathetic job of reaching out to people of color, something we've got to work on.
Let's pause that there because they get into the music part. So they bring up the issue that they felt the Republican Party, at least under Mitt Romney, did not do a good job of trying to win over voters of color. Now listen to this piece here.
Because they're going to have to go through is going to take years. It's not going to be one election or 1 year. It's going to come through a combination of the candidate, their biography, and the policies that all coincide together.
So candidates are important, policies are important, but so is something else: respect.
The reforms I'm proposing would not apply to those who are here illegally.
Again and again over the past 4 years, some in the Republican Party used strikingly harsh language that it seems clear alienated many voters.
You are not allowed to be a president if you're not born in this country.
If it's a legitimate rape, the female body has ways to try to shut that whole thing down.
This man hates this country.
So if you don't deport them, how do you send them home?
Well, the answer is self-deportation.
This guy is, I believe, a racist.
For all the celebrating in Chicago last night, President Obama gets barely majority approval for his job performance. He's battered some, grayer, and maybe wiser. But in the...
Let me pause there. So the point that I want to point out from that video, notice the support that he got and who that support came from. Eric, can we go back to the other screen? Thanks. Who he got that support from. So yes, Barack Obama, his polling at that point in time was not great. But Barack Obama had something that Joe Biden does not have. Barack Obama had strong support from the African American community, and he also increased his support from the Latino American community. Now we're going to fast forward to 2016 because I'm going to show you how things change. Enter Hillary Clinton. So Hillary Clinton comes into the race. In 2016, look at the exit polls, guys. Hillary Clinton garnered 88% of the black vote. 88%. That's down from Barack Obama. Barack Obama had 95%, then he had 93%. So one question you got to ask, what happened to the black voters that supported Barack Obama in 2012 and turned around and decided not to support Hillary Clinton? So this is another thing you got to look at. When we look at the Latino American vote, she also has a decrease with that when compared to Barack Obama. Hillary Clinton got 65% of the Latino vote. Barack Obama, at that point for 2012, he had 71%. So these numbers people need to pay close attention to. What I'm trying to show you is that Hillary Clinton, the decline of the black vote after Barack Obama, it drops with Hillary Clinton. So there were things about Hillary Clinton that the black community was not feeling too much. So that's Hillary. Let's jump to Joe Biden, 2020. If you look at the exit polls for 2020, this is the interesting part. Joe Biden got 87% of the black vote. Donald Trump got 12%. Let's go back. We'll come back. When Donald Trump ran against Hillary Clinton in 2016, Donald Trump only got 8% of the black vote. In 2020, Donald Trump got 12% of the black vote. Joe Biden, 87% of the black vote. That is a decrease from Hillary Clinton. What I'm trying to show you is that since Barack Obama, black voter support has decreased for the Democratic Party. So people need to pay attention to this. Now, let's bring this back up here. When we look at the Latino support, Joe Biden got 66%. Again, neither Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton were able to get back to that 71% support from the Latino community that Obama was able to capture. So the Democratic Party is losing support from black voters, Latino voters, at least on a national level. And then we're going to look at white voters. Watch this. Joe Biden got 42% of white voters. Hillary Clinton got 37% of white voters. Joe Biden got more support from white voters than Hillary Clinton did because Joe Biden was able to appeal to the women. Remember in Georgia, the women in the Atlanta suburbs? He was able to capture the suburban white women vote. And for whatever reason, white women weren't feeling Hillary that much. Or white people weren't feeling Hillary that much. She got 37%. 37%. So what I think is interesting, the reason why I'm showing you this is because for as much as people say that it was black voters that cost Hillary Clinton the election, and I've heard many people say that, if you compare her totals to Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton failed with white voters. 37%. 37%. JB said, damn, not even white people liked Hillary's ass. No, like this is crazy. These numbers are really interesting. But the continued theme is the fact that black voters are showing a decrease in turnout for the Democratic Party over time. Nobody has been able to get back to that 93 or 95% that Barack Obama had. Now, why is this important? Can we go back to the second part, Eric? This is important because I don't think that actually Nancy probably does know, but I think people need to look at these numbers. They need to look at these polls for the Democratic Party. What I believe is hurting Joe Biden right now is not just the Russia-Ukraine war and the inflation, but it's the situation in Gaza. So much to the point now, this could make it or break it for Joe Biden come 2024. And I say that saying that he's already being sued in reference to genocide in Gaza. U.S. President Biden sued for complicity in Israel's genocide in Gaza. This is Al Jazeera. A federal complaint filed on Monday against President Joe Biden, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, and Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin accuses them of failure to prevent and complicity in the Israeli government's unfolding genocide. New York civil liberties group, the Center for Constitutional Rights, filed the lawsuit on behalf of the Palestinian Human Rights Organization, Palestinians in Gaza, and U.S. citizens with relatives in the besieged enclave that has faced more than a month of relentless bombardment by Israel, which receives funding and weapons from the U.S. government. More than 11,200 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza since Israel launched attacks on October 7th. This followed a Hamas attack in Israel in which about 1,200 people were killed. So it goes on to say here, just want to go to this part right here. I paid for Israel to kill my cousins and my aunts. There's no two ways around it. She told Al Jazeera, this is coming from Layla Haddad. It was my tax dollars that did that sent those bombs to Israel to kill my family. And so I feel and all other American taxpayers have a very unique responsibility to hold our government and our elected officials responsible. The lawsuit also calls for an end to the $3.8 billion in annual military support the U.S. sends to Israel. The White House has not responded to Al Jazeera's request. This issue, and I believe this issue alone, will make it or break it for Joe Biden in 2024. So, Nancy, you can leave Obama out of this because Joe ain't got those numbers. A lot of times they just want to call out, oh, well, he was polling around the same. Obama was polling low too, and Obama had something that Joe Biden didn't have, and he had the black vote and he had the Latino vote, and Joe Biden don't have that. That's the problem.